So the great thing about Law Group as a collection of hotels is that being under private ownership, we don't have to have a sort of fixed, determined growth strategy. We don't have an intention where we need to open hotels, refurbish hotels, sell hotels. So that gives us a really unique opportunity to be number one, opportunistic, where we're in cities where we already have hotels, such as Amsterdam and London, or other great cities in Europe and the US, where actually if we see an opportunity to create a one-of-one hotel, which is very much what we've done up to now, we can pursue that rather than say we need to find another hotel in this city here. So short term, we're sort of, it feels like I joined the business 2 years ago, and so pretty much until the beginning of this year, we went through a series of stop starts in terms of openings, closures, semi-closures, a wave of Delta, a wave of Omicron. So really, in the last sort of couple of months, this has been the first time for us to look at the portfolio of 6 hotels and see that it feels that everything is now, we're coming out of this sort of very, very difficult 2 years and map forwards. Specifically to what we've been focused on is really, unlike quite a few business in the sort of travel and hospitality space, we've really looked in the mirror, but we've also looked at what else is going on to say, actually, what's great about our business, and there are lots of things that are great, and how do we make them greater or better? And at the same time, we've also used this as an opportunity to look at, where do we need to reset? Where do we need to look at different things going on in our business? And that could be around our people, that could be around our systems. And certainly, there's major headwinds, not only in the UK, but we see the same in mainland Europe, and we see the same in the US, where we've had to look at, what are we doing from a people's perspective? And we have great loyalty from the teams that work for us, but we also have to recognize that we have to do things very differently. So I think it's a really good question. I think it's a number of things, and again, probably the context is obviously in my role. I've been around since May 2020, but yes, you're right. Law Group has owned the building and the hotel, which operated under a management agreement with ACE since late 2015. I think for us, and this probably is in line with our strategy to operate our own hotels, which makes us sort of quite unique as a owner, operator, manager, that clearly no one expected COVID. If there hadn't been a pandemic, we would have looked at ACE, and we would have looked at Shoreditch as a market and the hotel itself and said, what's next? There's no doubt about it. In the time that ACE operated the hotel, they did an amazing job, and having opened the original Hoxton in Shoreditch in 2006, and a number of my team, one of my former team was actually the general manager of the hotel. I've always had a sort of a great fondness for the hotel and what they've done, and certainly ACE did an amazing job of really programming and getting people into spaces, people that wouldn't necessarily think to come into a hotel or come into a hotel in Shoreditch High Street. But given that all hotels were forced to close, shutter as the pandemic hit, the hotel also was at a point in which its previous owners had spent money on upgrading it to create ACE. There was also some bigger, I guess, more medium and long-term capital expenditure plans that we needed to execute, and that was the point in which we said, okay, well, let's just pause and look at what do we do next. And in line with, as I mentioned earlier, our other hotels. So, for example, Sea Containers was formerly the Mondrian. Again, as we built out this hotel collection, we decided that we felt now was the time for this hotel to come under the Law management banner rather than a third-party management company. Well, I think first of all, and certainly we're pretty consistent on this. We saw this as sort of evolution rather than revolution. We were great fans of what ACE did, and I guess for us, we felt that some of it was around the physical building, and some of it was around we felt that Shoreditch, had changed. We sort of had we internally talked about this sort of this analogy of quite a few of the customers, they were single, they were living in Shoreditch, they needed a space to work or play or eat, and I guess if nothing else, just through time, that person is a few years older, maybe they've moved in with their partner, they're looking for something different. So very much what we were trying to do here, and that goes across the whole board here, whether that be around the service offering, the partnerships. Again, we're very much we're super respectful to what ACE did, and in many cases, in the same way since we opened the hotel at the beginning of March, we've had multiple fashion launches, we've had a full 2 months of programming, and again, being respectful to ACE, if there's things that they did really well, we've also done them, but we've added our twist. At the same time, if we think there's things that maybe have changed or have moved on, and we sort of said, well, let's look at this differently. So we're certainly not trying to sort of make this a sort of copycat ACE with a different name. This is very much about, I think, recognising that the location's sort of grown up, and we felt there's absolutely things that we want to continue to do, build on, but at the same time add our own sort of call it DNA to what we do here at 100 Shoreditch. The last thing we want to be is vanilla, but I think that there was a customer that potentially walked into ACE and said, I don't feel at home here. Now, again, I think that there's different people look for different things when they visit a hotel, and again, what we've tried to do, I guess, is to broaden our audience so that, again, as not only Shoreditch has changed, that actually we are, we do have that offering. So as we've reconfigured spaces. We've added in the wine bar alongside God on a Gibbs, our fish-led restaurants. But equally, the lobby still has that buzz of people on their Macs working, creative classes, doing what they do. And so I think, again, it's sort of this. It's definitely, I think there's certain people, and I guess if you look at the sort of demand drivers for this location, a lot of tastemakers, a lot of groups have always chosen Shoreditch, particularly international travellers coming into London, because there's always something you can see and something you can learn. What people are wearing, what's going on, what's the music that's being played, what are the pop-ups, and we've actually dedicated a studio space within the hotel actually to pop-ups, and that's for us a great way of bringing people locally and allowing us to forge relationships, partnerships and relationships rather than commercial relationships using that space. But I think more broadly, what we've tried to do is, we have a great group of impassioned employees that work here, but also we've recognised that there's an opportunity for us just to elevate a little bit of the service as the area moves on. I think years ago, and certainly from my background with Edition, there was a view that boutique hotels, the service could be a bit self-service, whereas actually what we've tried to do here in line with our other hotels is to really look at what elements of service matter. And I think one of the things that's changed with the pandemic is people's want or need for different types of service, high touch and low touch. So high touch is going to be the fact that you see the doorman as you walk in and he remembers your name, and he really wants to find out why you're here and what you want to do. But equally, a lot of our guests like the idea that you can get the equivalent of a WhatsApp, and that's a way of communicating if you've got an Amazon parcel arriving or you want to order room service. That's a big question. Okay, let me try and pick off a few bits. So I think the great thing for us, I suppose, is that we're not an exception, but we are probably, there are less of us as we operate as the owner, as the manager and the operator. And I think one of the things which I think sets us apart is that our interests are completely aligned. So in many cases, I guess, if you've got an owner, could be a pension fund, could be a private equity firm, could be a developer. You've got a manager or an asset manager, and their interests, certainly if you look at the big brands, their interests are about driving revenue versus driving profitability, driving revenue versus having happy, engaged employees, and then you have an operator. So I think our benefit is we do all of those things. I think in terms of what I also see, and you can see this just in terms of some of our, I guess, hard to paint a full picture because business is coming back, but it feels to me like certainly on the business travel side of things, people are traveling less but better. So our thesis is that I think that if you take a sort of a traveller, and obviously there's going to be different levels of traveller, but I think people are looking for true luxury, or they're looking for affordable luxury. And so where we've spent a lot of time, and we've got sort of hotels that fit into, let's say, both categories between our collection hotels and our other hotels, but we've really looked to say, okay, again, what do people want, and then what is that people experience from our teams as well, because certainly opening here in Shoreditch has been different to opening 15 plus years ago. The market's changed, the teams have changed, what the teams look for has changed. So I'll give you an example. One of the things we're doing, which on the people front, is we're putting in a new HR system. It sounds pretty dull when I explain it like that, but one of the great reasons we bought into this was that we see that when I came into hospitality, it was a case of, this is your job, you do this many hours, and keep at it, and in a year's time, if you keep quiet, do your job, someone will recognise you. What we've got now, and Shoreditch, 100 Shoreditch is a great example where the majority of our employees do not have a traditional full-time contract as we would have seen it. What we have is a group of people that have other interests outside of working at 100 Shoreditch, and so actually we relish this as an opportunity, because I think there's a view that I prefer to have 3 amazing people who are brilliant for 15 hours a week, let's say, rather than somebody that by the 4th day on duty they don't want to be here. And so what we're doing with this technology platform, and we're actually one of the first people to be putting it in across across our three geographies, is we'll give the ability to not only pick shifts, change shifts, work out who they want to work with. And I think for a long time people have said people don't work in hospitality because it's low pay, long hours. I don't think that really is the case now, but when we're looking for, ultimately in the UK, we're looking for homegrown talent. We're looking outside of the UK, in Holland and in the US, we're looking for people to fall in love with hospitality again, because there's a large number of people left hospitality during the pandemic, and when you understand why they left, a lot of those things are really bad practices, which you see some of the worst hotels performing versus the best hotels performing. So again, we've got the benefit that, again, with our aligned interest, we can look at things and do things that others wouldn't. What is next? So coming out of the pandemic, 2 years in, I think everyone's been sort of really focused on how do we use this opportunity to make business better. There aren't many people that would have opened 2 hotels during the pandemic, so that feels like an achievement, both here in Shoreditch and Lisle in Washington DC. We're really now thinking about the future, and I think that we love the idea that we can create these one-of-one hotels. They're super time consuming, because actually if you're trying to take a building, you're trying to sort of imagine what it could be, what it was maybe historically, what you want it to be. That takes more time. But again, given our I suppose our unique sort of situation with our aligned interests as an owner, operator, manager, it means that we can take time to do that. We love the cities we're in. So I'd love for us to have a hotel in the West End of London. I'd love to find another hotel in Amsterdam, because it's a really, really vibrant city. Again, Washington DC is a very, very different city to 10, 15 years ago. But we also think there are some really fantastic storied cities in Europe and the US, where if we could find an unloved hotel with great bones, between our creative team, between our food and beverage team, we believe we can go in and create something. So I don't think you're ever going to see law with 27 hotels. I think we're 6 hotels today. Maybe a perfect size for us is 10, but each hotel you visit will absolutely feel as if the team has curated that hotel as a one of one, and that's what excites me and what excites our team, and we're very fortunate that we've got a lot of support in terms of looking for that. So, but interestingly, and I know you will have covered this in a lot of other interviews and other forums that you organise as a group, but we haven't seen the level of distress we expected during the pandemic. I think we on one side we were looking to say, okay, what do we need to do to keep the lights on, to look after our teams, to use the opportunity of the pandemic to make our business better. But we also sat there expecting, to be able to buy some great hotels or hotels that maybe had fallen on harder times at a sort of call it pandemic price. We've not seen that in any sense, and so I don't know whether or not that's coming. It feels that now government support has been sort of switched off. Taxes are back where they need to be, and I do genuinely think that. I think again, people are either going to choose affordable luxury, they're going to choose budget, like proper budget, or they're going to choose true luxury. So there's definitely, I think probably in the branded spaces, there's a hell of a lot of hotels there that when people are ultimately going to travel better but maybe less, that you have to believe that there's going to be opportunities in certainly the markets we would look at.